Today our focus is time for change, and I'm Altina Cox. Ecclesiastes, the 3rd chapter says, "For everything there is a season, and a time for every purpose under heaven." Verse 7 says, "A time to keep silent, and a time to speak." Now is the appointed time for us to speak up for change, for justice, for unity, for freedom, for equity and love. It's time for the people of God and people everywhere who have heard the cries for justice to do something. Edmund Burke said, "The only thing necessary for triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing." It's time. It's my time. It's your time. It's our time to advocate for change. Today, we will hear from a panel of millennials, young professionals of diverse ethnicities, because this is not just a Black problem, but an issue for humanity. Our panelists will address the time and changes that need to happen. You'll want to hear this, and you'll want to share it. You say, change. Why here? Why now? In light of the recent COVID events, while the world's numbers of COVID-19 deaths were mounting, people all over the world were focused on the United States, as now our death toll had topped 100,000. And amidst the cries of grief and unemployment, hunger, pain felt by our entire nation, the communities of the minorities were experiencing disproportionate death rates from the virus, inadequate health care, and yet many minorities are the essential workers. We were reminded to stay home, stay safe, protect yourself, your family, your neighbors against this virus. Social distancing, practice it, and stay safe. So what could we do? Oh, get out and exercise. Oh yeah, so me and my husband, we power walk every day, 2 to 4 miles in our neighborhood. Social distancing, staying safe. But it didn't work for everybody. Young Black man in Georgia, jogging in his neighborhood, shot to death, run over, targeted. Why? Because of the color of his skin. In Kentucky, oh yeah, stay home, stay safe. You're safe in your home. Not so for a young Black female, 26-year-old EMT in her home, shot to death with 8 bullets from the police. In New York, stay safe, social distancing. What could be more safer hobby than bird watching, or a Black man bird watching? Seemed like it would be the less threatening person around. But when he reminded a white female of the rules to keep your dog on the leash, he was faced with a probable negative outcome of her fabricated report to the police, calling 911. But you know what the tipping point was? What was the turning point? May 20th, our nation opening. We're all awaiting what's going to happen when we go out on the streets again. From the Empire State to the protests in Michigan, the shops in Georgia, the beaches in Florida. Will the COVID numbers rise? As we were all on high alert, it was the streets in Minneapolis that rocked the world. Not from the coronavirus, but from the plague of brutality. We witnessed in broad daylight on a public street, against the backdrop of shoppers and cameras and cell phones, cries of outrage. Stop it! Let him go! The urgent cry from a Black man saying, "I can't breathe." He is asphyxiated, his life snuffed out, murdered by the police, those sworn to protect us right before our eyes. When I saw that scene and I heard his cry, I told my family, this is it. That cry will ring around the world, because I remembered back in my 7th grade class, in the history class, about Crispus Attucks, a Black man. He was the first American to die for the Revolutionary War. It was called, that shot was called, the shot that rang around the world. No, that wasn't the first time, the first cry from an unarmed Black man dying in the hands of the police. New York, 2014. He said, "I can't breathe." on the sidewalk. In Washington, March 2020, another young man said, "I can't breathe." He died at the hands of the police. But this time, that cry was seen and heard around the world. And second, it symbolized something for African Americans. The plight for society holding us down by the neck till our lives or our influence has been snuffed out of us or our self-worth. It's time for a change. Time's up. People have had enough. At this time, we're getting ready to hear from our panelists. But before we do, we're going to sing a song. Adam is going to lead us in a song called "We Will Stand."
Sometimes it's hard for me to understand why we pull away from each other so easily, even though we're walking the same road. Yet we build dividing walls between our brothers and ourselves. But I don't care what label you may wear. If you believe in Jesus, you belong with me. The bond we share is all I can see. And we can change this world forever if you'll join with me. Won't you join and sing? You're my brother, you're my sister, so take me by the hand. Together we will work until it comes. There's no foe that can defeat us if we're walking side by side. As long as there is love, we will stand. The day will come when we will be as one, and with a mighty voice together we will proclaim that Jesus is King, and it will echo through the earth and shake the nations, and the world will see. You're my brother, you're my sister, so take me by the hand. Together we will work until it comes. There's no foe that can defeat us if we're walking side by side. As long as there is love, we will stand. You're my brother, you're my sister, so take me by the hand. Together we will work until it comes. There's no foe that can defeat us if we're walking side by side. As long as there is love, we will stand.
What time is it? Let's hear from our first panelist, Tierra Cox. She is a former intern for Senator Tom Lantos. She was a representative for Congressman Jim Costa. She's a law graduate and now director. Tierra Cox.
So I've been asked to talk about the current events and the concept and the theme that it is time for a change. And what does that mean? What does that mean today, in this present moment, as a Black woman, as an American, as a Christian, as an employee, a friend, neighbor, a sister, loved one? As I have processed and continue to process the events of the killing of Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, and thousands of others, my heart grieves. I am sad, angry, broken. And but also, I will say, encouraged by the response of my fellow humans across the nation and across the world. We all should be outraged by the deaths of these individuals, particularly watching the officer's knee on George's neck as he is pleading for his life, saying, "I can't breathe, I can't breathe." And that raw film of humanity poured out for the whole world to see. Every human heart should be touched. Every human heart should be outraged. Every person should be demanding, what happened? What kind of world do I live in? What society am I a part of that allows for this to occur and for it to go unchecked? Had it not been for those who were recording the footage, had it not been for the massive protests around the nation and around the world, had it not been during a pandemic time, had it not been, unfortunately, for the rioting and the looting, which I condemn, had that not happened, justice would not be served in this case. And I think that it's a time for us as humans, as Americans, as Christians, to take personal inventory and ask why this happened. How can I live in a society where I will allow this to happen and not say anything? We must ask these questions of ourselves and of our fellow man, of our neighbors, of our family members, of our coworkers, our friends. We must ask the question, how can we, in a democratic society, a free society, allow for a system of police brutality, to allow for a system of social injustice, of racial injustice? How can we allow for this to happen and not speak up and not say something? I unfortunately, at first, when I heard of the situation and witnessed and watched the videos, I was angry and upset, but not surprised. This was just caught on film. This was just caught on video. This is not anything new in the Black community. And I realized, though, as the marches increased and the outpouring of support and anger and just raw feelings and emotion and rage, as that rolled out across the nation and across the world, I realized that I had become desensitized to this, that Black folks getting killed at the hands of police had become normal to me. And I think that this is a time where we all have to take personal stock, personal inventory.
Now, Neerash Rama, a neighbor, community voice for unity, financial planner, and a family man.
It's time that we find our common humanity. It's time that we can stand up for those that are different from us, that don't have as much as us, and spread prosperity to everyone. It's time that we end suffering. It's time that we use the tools and the resources to build harmony and build bridges and destroy hate. It's time that we realize our common purpose. Einstein said time is relative. I oftentimes believe that means, in case of issues like this in society, that we control what it is that we want to achieve. We don't have to be subject to rules and unspoken laws, things that are beyond us, goals that are aspirational. It's time to be aspirational. It's time to find our common humanity. It's time to fight for those injustices. It's time to be the voice for the voiceless here and around the world. It's time that we have equality. It's time that we give equity. It's time that we right the wrongs from other generations of past. And it's time that we make the generations of the future look to us and say they did the right thing.
Jason Cater. He's a community voice for justice, a city planner, and a family man. Now, Jason.
It's time that we end the virus that is systemic racism in our society. We've dealt with this virus since the foundation of this country. We've dealt with the symptoms in many ways and cured a lot of the issues that have come as a result of it, but we continue to deal with the virus. And until we are honest about what it is that continues to haunt this society, we will not do away with it. It's going to take all Americans, including those who are privileged enough to have to live through it, to be honest about this situation. And I think that's going to take a lot from this country, but we're able to do it. And the time is now. We've seen this manifestation enough since the foundation of this country, and it needs to stop. And I just want to share this personally. 4 weeks ago, I had a son, and the week he was born, the Ahmaud Arbery case was nationally publicized. And I remember being a new parent and having a new son, and just wanting to protect him from everything and wanting to give him the world. And I remember seeing the pain of many of our black parents in America, people I knew, friends, family friends, who just felt that this hit so close to home because they felt like it could be their son. They deal with the issues of racism throughout their lives, and we need to end that. This should not be something that's normalized in society. We should not have black parents feeling like they have to have that conversation with their black kids at a young age about what it means to be black in America. Black fathers should not have to talk to their black sons about what it means to drive while black. To not have to have the conversation of what do you do when you are pulled over by the police. Not a matter of if, but when you're pulled over, how do you behave? And we should not be normalizing these things into our society. It's a sin that we've allowed these things to become so prevalent, and it's even more of a sin that many people who are privileged enough to not have to deal with these issues have maybe in some form dismissed that this is a reality for people in our society. It's time that we as Americans are sincere about any systemic racism and that we really build an America that we tout, which is a country where all men are equal and all people have opportunity.
And as Jason just indicated, and so many clergy have said, this is not a skin issue as much as it is a sin issue. We need to advocate for change of character and heart and embody the pure conviction of the gospel to love our neighbors as ourselves and to empathize with the cries of the oppressed. Now, Diana, a social worker, advocate for social equity, the wife of a black man, and now she's going to be a first-time mom.
Today I speak not just as a Latina, not just as a Chicana, not just as a social worker. Today I speak as the wife of a black man and as the expecting mother of a biracial child. I'm someone that's become disillusioned with the reality of this country and shedding some of my ignorance throughout the years as I've learned to identify and challenge social injustices. We live in a country where the color of your skin can get you killed. It makes you a living, breathing target, subject to biased scrutiny and clear discrimination. Years of protest and advocacy for changes have yielded very little, for adamant racist beliefs fuel the way that this country systematically continues to oppress. Every day sends a message to Black lives, almost yelling, "You're not worthy, you are less." I can't speak as to what it's like to be Black, but I know how we talk about Black people. I know how Black people are perceived. And now I know of the conversations that Black families have with their children. I know of the warnings and the precautions that are given to ensure that mothers and fathers have their Black child or children returned home to them safely. In anticipation of the arrival of our own child, my husband and I have been preparing to have these conversations as we are conscious of the importance of acknowledging how the world will perceive our child and what we must do to equip them with the tools necessary to navigate this world. For I want my child to be able to come home to me without a fear that their life is being threatened. Because to this day, I worry for my husband's safety, praying that no one will view him as a threat or a menace when his wife or his daughter aren't by his side, or as he goes about his life simply driving, walking, living as anyone else would, without the extreme worry and hyper-consciousness of how every move and every look you give may be interpreted by someone else. With an inundation of flooding ignorance, I've had to learn to establish boundaries with social media, as with every comment comes growing anger and frustration, not only with those who refuse to listen, but with those who discourage others from accepting that this too is our fight. For this is not just a black and white issue. As organizations such as Latino Justice and Mi Gente have unequivocally stated, Black Lives Matter. Juan Cartagena states, our community knows the devastating pain of having loved ones killed by police, including ICE, CBP, at the hands of brutal police violence that systematically targets and exterminates the lives of people of color. This is especially why Latinos should be able to empathize with Black Americans. It is true. Our people are oppressed and discriminated and mistreated. We continue to have children in cages, mothers and fathers torn away from their children, sexual abuse cases being swept under the rug, extortion, mistreatment, repeated instances of actions that serve to strip us and our people of our dignity and humanity. There's a popular saying in Spanish, La unión hace la fuerza, meaning there is unity in strength. In 1966, Martin Luther King Jr. asserted himself as an ally of Cesar Estrada Chavez and the UFW, writing, as brothers in the fight for equality, I extend the hand of fellowship and goodwill and wish continuing success to you and your members. The fight for equality must be fought on many fronts, in the urban slums, in the sweatshops of the factories and fields. Our separate struggles are really one, a struggle for freedom, for dignity, and for humanity. You and your fellow workers have demonstrated your commitment to righteous grieving wrongs forced upon exploited people. We are together with you in spirit and in determination that our dreams for a better tomorrow will be realized. So what time is it? Well, it's no longer the time to stay silent. It's time to denounce and condemn racial injustice and to begin mass mobilization. It is the time to support revolutionary change, and this requires for us as a community to empathize with protesters. Solidarity is necessary to support the Black Lives Matter movement against a corrupt system of oppression that thrives on seeing minorities fight with one another, competing for scraps of resources and consideration. Our experiences are linked, and right now, anti-Black racism is an urgent crisis. So what time is it? It's time to stand with our Black brothers and sisters. It's time that we continue to protect our communities to avoid more damage, division, and hate. It's time to keep the momentum going, to make change happen as we stand together to fight for lasting change and a permanent impact against racism and anti-Black violence. It can be so easy to feel removed from this cause, to attempt to find justifications to sit back in silence, or to feel so paralyzed, hopeless even, at the pervasiveness of the cycle of racism, prejudice, and injustice that instead of acting, we choose to do nothing, and that in doing nothing, we continue to enable. Starting with the conversations we have with friends, family, and our communities is a great step forward, but we must not stop there. It's time to listen and elevate Black voices, time to educate ourselves in sharing resources and informing others. It's time to legislate and vote differently, to sign petitions, to call our members of Congress, to donate money and time to Black organizations. It is a time to be pro-justice, pro-Black life, pro-accountability, and pro-racial equality, to organize, to fight, and to help those who are hurting begin to heal. I end with this, a reverberating message from Latinos to the Black community. I am not Black, but I see you. I am not Black, but I hear you. I am not black, but I mourn with you. And I am not black, but I will fight with you.
Adam, educator, husband of Diana, youth director, Sunday school teacher, taught a series on social justice as commanded by God in the Bible and our responsibility today. And let's hear from a young black man.
What time is it? Throughout these past few weeks, I've heard many conversations about race, and I'm pretty sure you have too. To me, it's beautiful. It's absolutely necessary that we have these conversations, not just with ourselves or our families, but with our friends and people that we come in contact with, because it is absolutely essential in order to get beyond it. However, race is not the only issue here. So what time is it? It's time that we understand that these issues that we're facing transcend white versus black narrative that we automatically turn to in these times, because it's an oversimplification of a more systemic issue that plagues us. Is it a coincidence that the same racist structures and policies that have kept black people down for so long also keep down our Latino brothers and sisters? Is it a coincidence that the same power structure that was bent on building a wall, making the Muslim ban, the internment camps for the Japanese, made the Patriot Act and random selection, all to make an us versus them narrative? Is it a coincidence that this same power structure was the catalyst for the Me Too movement? Or is it a coincidence that this power structure was the same structure that drove the Native Americans to near extinction, and even now those who remain live in abject poverty? This system itself is flawed. So to try to pick one part of the system and paint it as if it's the entire issue is myopic and short-sighted. It's like trying to destroy a weed by just taking it up by the stem. The problem is, in leaving the root, it grows stronger and is allowed to spread until it rears its ugly head again. This is the same with trying to defeat this issue by just saying it's all because of racism, it's all because of the black and white. Yes, it's very, very easy to see that it's a white man with his knee on the neck of a black man, so this automatic of black versus white just comes out. But if our protests are just about black and white and just about how black people should be treated better, then it will continue to rear its ugly head in a different issue. So what is it that we should be fighting against? It's the power structure, the system that we Americans have allowed to dominate for so long. Not the system of laws that governs our country. The system is the people that we have elected and put into power. Their corruption is our fault, because we continuously show and demonstrate that we are apathetic and lethargic when it comes to the voting booth. That is where true change happens. Yes, it's amazing that so many people are protesting and demonstrating. It's beautiful, and we need that. But if you think that that in of itself is going to create change, then you are dreaming. If you think that the Trump and Mike Pence and the Ted Cruzes of the world and the Lindsey Grahams and the Mitch McConnells, if you think that all they need to see is us demonstrating, and they'll all of a sudden say, wow, there is some racism, I guess we do need to change, then you are dreaming. They have built this administration on being blatantly ignorant of the most basic and ostensible things, but it did not start with them. These demonstrations are amazing because they are spreading our angst, and they are showing people who can be empathetic that there needs to be a change. But so many of our people in power have demonstrated time and time again that they cannot be empathetic. So what do we need to do? We need to make sure that their actions are not beyond reproach. And we do that through voting. It's not screaming out in the streets that makes the change, even though that's necessary. It's electing officials, and politicians who hear your voice and will do something about it. It's voting those who dare to further the system of discrimination out of office and putting in those who actually will make the difference that you want to see. So vote, vote, vote. In the words of my favorite president, don't boo, vote. This is how true change happens. This is how true change occurs. Not enough of us are running for Congress. Not enough of us are running for president. If you really want to see a change, be that change. Make your voice heard where it matters. The streets, absolutely. Protests, absolutely. They're amazing. They're great. But they're just there to convey a message to the people as a whole. It's not there to create the change. The Civil Rights Act, it was signed into law. Lyndon B. Johnson signed it into law. All of the bus boycotts, all of the demonstrations, yes, they were good. They got America to rally around. But no true change happened until that legislation was signed. That is how we change things. Let's vote. Let's get the people into office that should be in office. That is our duty. That is our responsibility.
Now, what can we do, Pastor Cox? There's protests all over the world, cries for justice. What can we do as neighbors and friends and the people of God? Do we have a responsibility at this time? Pastor Cox.
As God's people, we have a responsibility to help those who cannot help themselves when we have the ability to help. This includes people who are being oppressed, and the least we can do is to empathize with them and pray for their deliverance. Now, when it is within our power to do something positive, we should work to remove or relieve their burdens. We should seek God's face and find out what His will is. Now, the Bible speaks of the men of Issachar. They are a tribe of Israel, a family in the nation of Israel. And these men were warriors who understood the times, and they knew what the nation of Israel should do. We have those who want to go to war over the injustices and atrocities that are being perpetrated against the black and brown people in this city and cities all around the United States. We should pray for the police, asking God to show them a better way to serve and protect all of us with justice, with mercy, and with humility. We should seek justice, we should love mercy, and we should walk humbly with God. This is what God told the people in the book of Micah. Now, this week, on Monday, I called my church to a time of intercessory prayer for the families of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and others who have been murdered by police or by vigilantes. We prayed that God would move on the hearts of our leaders to do the right thing. And on Tuesday, I participated in a virtual meeting with local church leaders and community leaders. It was with the mayor, the city manager, and the chief of police for the city of Bakersfield. And we're asking for the police to be accountable to the community, especially to the people of color. We're asking for changes in the police treatment of this sector. We're asking for changes in police terminology and perspective of the people they are sworn to serve and protect. We're asking that they would learn to not look at us as the enemy, but as brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers, as family, because that's what we are. On Wednesday, I participated in a prayer walk and peaceful protest with clergy in front of the police department, and there were prayers of repentance, prayers of reconciliation, prayers for love in the community, and hope for our city. These were offered for the community and for the city of Bakersfield, as well as for our nation. And it is my sincere hope that our leaders are seriously committed to change. Because if things remain as they are, I think that God will judge us and find us guilty of violating the basics of His Word. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. Now, that commandment does not go away when a police uniform is donned or when someone steps into office or gets a place of responsibility and authority. It's even more so. So, we don't want to be surprised in the day of judgment to discover that God never recognized us as His own because we failed to love. So again, my desire and my hope is that we follow God's word. And it says again, He has shown you, He's revealed to you, oh man, what is good and what the Lord requires of you. And that is to do justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with God.
Change is entirely possible. And with the help of God, we will change. So pray with me. Father God, thank you for hope. Thank you for our conviction and our expectation that things will get better, that institutional racism will and that people of color will be given true justice with dignity and honor in our city. Lord, we are persuaded that the promises spoken by our city leaders are spoken in truth and sincerity. We have to give these leaders capacity and determination to deliver on those promises. We are persuaded that the future of Bakersfield will be bright and flourishing as our leaders and citizens. Oh God, we pray that you would bless us. Oh God, we look to you. And we ask you, God, for freedom from oppression. Ask you, God, for healing on this land. And Lord, just like the prophet said, that I see out the shot of a man's hand, and he said, I see abundance of rain. Lord, you are going to rain down on us. We thank you, dear God, for the hope we have in our souls, brighter than the perfect day. Bless us, God, in the name of Jesus, we pray. Amen.
Some of us may have limited mobility or be unable to walk or march. You can contact your leaders, your legislators, your senators, assembly persons. That's what I did this week. You can donate to organizations. You can post. You can speak to your friends, your coworkers, encouraging and empowering those who do have a voice and who can change policies in the police department, in your school districts, in your laws. Let your light shine. Show the world we can love, and not just in words, but in deeds and in truth. Do something, and above all, pray. It's time now, not for my people, not for your people, but for our people. We, the people of the United States, pull up your brothers and sisters off the ground. Take them by the hand. Together, we will stand. It's time for change.
You're my brother, you're my sister, so take me by the hand. Together we will work until we come